Hello and welcome to the Integrity Sports Podcast. Our show is powered each week by Harper's Tree and Stump Removal. If you have any tree trimming, tree removal, or stump removal needs, Harper's Tree and Stump Removal has you covered. They can also haul rock and sand. They do driveway work. They can build ponds or repair pond dams and can now do horizontal grindings of large wood debris piles. Give Keith a call at 229-314-2048 or at 229-938-2412. Harper's Tree and Stump Removal, the proud premier sponsor of the Integrity Sports Podcast.
Welcome to the Integrity Sports Podcast, covering local sports in the Southwest Georgia area, creating content that is factual, positive, and informative, promoting efforts by athletes, coaches, and sports administrators. Now, here's your host, Tim Estes.
Hey, we want to thank you for making the Integrity Sports Podcast a part of your weekly routine. Our show is available each week on Facebook, X, LinkedIn, and YouTube. So whichever platform you're watching on today, please hit the like and share buttons. We've also had over 2,000 views in our last 7 episodes. So we want to thank you for that. We're going to try something today. Since we're getting 2,000 plus views over 7 weeks, whatever platform you're watching on today, we want to ask you to go to YouTube, go to the Integrity Sports Podcast page, and hit subscribe. We're one halfway to our 1,000 subscriber mark, and if you'll help us, maybe we'll reach that by next week. It's nearly time for high school football, and that's always a fun time of year, and that also means that Scott Westbrook and I will be broadcasting live each Thursday night at 7:15 from the Roman Oven Pizzeria, and we'll brief the 3 local high school teams. That'll be Southland Academy, Sumter County High School, and Sly County High School. And each week we'll preview their upcoming game and talk a little bit about the game from the previous week. Scott, we had a great time doing that last year, and I'm looking forward to August the 15th when we start this year.
Tim, it's never too early to start talking about football. And just like you, I mean, I'm chomping at the bit. I know the fans are. I know the players are ready to get out there. They've been working hard. They had spring football. They've been putting it in the weight room. They've been conditioning. Pretty soon they're going to be putting the pads on and getting ready for the first scrimmage game.
Scott, you know, last year was our first year going live. Mm-hmm. We are in the party room there at Roman Oven. So right as you come in the restaurant, if you'll go left, you'll see us in there. And we had several times where folks would come and eat supper with us. Some local high school student athletes came in and were on our show a little bit. I hope we can make that grow a little bit this year and even get some of our high school coaches, both head coaches and assistant coaches in.
That's right. And that always makes it a lot more interesting when the fans get to hear right from the horse's mouth, so to speak, and get to hear the coaches kind of what's going on behind the scenes and to know kind of what the plans are for the upcoming week. I mean, I know the coaches are going to keep a lot of things close to the vest, but you know, they'll use their coach speak and use generalizations and maybe even use us to lead their opponents astray a little bit. That would be fine with us too.
Absolutely. Scott, each week our show is brought to us by several sponsors. We want to thank them. Of course, Harper's Tree and Stump Removal has been our premier sponsor since this show began 2 years ago. In addition to that, One Digital Solutions is one of our sponsors, along with Marty McDonald State Farm Insurance, as well as the Fish House. So throughout the broadcast, you'll hear us mention those sponsors, and we certainly want to thank them for that. Scott, for today, what I'd like to do is let's just do a quick rundown of those 3 teams, Southland Academy, Sumter County, and Sly County. Let everybody know kind of what they did last year, what maybe some of the changes are this year, and what their schedule is. I don't want to take a deep dive into anything yet. We'll do that over the next 3 weeks as we talk to those 3 head coaches. But I think it'd be interesting for our audience today if we can just look at a brief overview of all three of these teams. And let's start with Southland Academy. Southland had a record last year of 5 wins and 7 losses. One of the neat things that I think Southland will see this year is the fact that they are moving from Class AAA in the GIAA down to Class AA. They also have a new head coach, and we talked to him on this program a few weeks ago, as Chance Jones will begin his first year as the head coach. But Scott, Southland with kind of that mid-range year last year, a lot of optimism so far going into the spring, going into the fall season this year.
You know, there's a lot of buzz going around Americus with Southland. You know, that several community coaches have stepped up and going to be helping out this year. There's a lot of enthusiasm with the fans and the players. Rumors are maybe some new uniforms, maybe perhaps coming out. Just a few little things that Coach Jones is doing to subtly get folks back excited about Southland football again.
And Scott, even though they are moving down a classification, they'll still have many of their old familiar opponents. One of those is the guy that I think's been their rival for years and years. That's Deerfield Windsor, and they open with Deerfield at home this year on August 16th.
Deerfield, I think they kind of had a significantly below average year for according to Deerfield standards last year. I'll be interested to see what happens this year. But, you know, the Terrell Academy is just growing by leaps and bounds. They are getting a lot of kids out of Lee County. I don't think that's a big secret to anybody who follows any kind of high school athletics. So Terrell Academy is probably a team that a game they've got circled this year also, is in addition to Deerfield.
Yeah. I saw where they also renewed a game with Marion County. So Southland will have home games with Marion County, Tift Area Academy, Terrell Academy, and Trinity Christian. They'll also play Robert Toombs Christian. And one of the new teams in their region is not new to Southland at all. That's Southwest Georgia Academy. And in talking with Chance Jones, the new coach at Southland, he feels like Southwest Georgia's got a really strong team coming in this year.
You probably do. You know, these coaches, they see each other at these conferences. I know that, you know, I think that Southland went to the FCA 7-on-7. It was either earlier this week or last week in Ellaville at Sly County. And I heard a lot of good things about Southland and their performance at that. And that bodes well for a team that's planning on running the wing T, that they have a 7-on-7 and do well at a 7-on-7, because that occasionally, if they do have to throw the ball, they've got some folks to throw it to.
Scott, what I'd like to do is, as we go through these teams today and talk about their schedules, let's talk quickly too about some of the players that our viewers may want to watch. And we have talked with all of these coaches previously and found out some of the guys that they feel like will be key players. Over at Southland, you start any team with the quarterback, and Southland's got 2 guys that are vying for the quarterback spot. One of those is the senior, Cooper Boren. And then, of course, the junior, Mac McMichael, who we heard a lot about in different positions last year. Both of those guys, quality athletes. I would guess, Scott, and I think you would probably agree with this, a new wing T offense. So Chance Jones probably needs to see which one of those guys fits best in that style offense.
Most definitely. And I'm sure he's already got it figured out after spring and throughout the summer. But, you know, there's always people that'll come when fall rolls around, when summer practices roll around, there's always somebody that comes out of the woodworks that surprises you. And but this is the time for the players to really separate themselves. I always say you separate yourself with your work ethic and your attitude, and it's up to the player whether you separate yourself in a good way or a bad way. You go out there with a negative attitude and a poor work ethic, you will separate yourself, but it's not the way you want to. You go out there with a strong work ethic and a good attitude, a strong, good, great attitude, and you'll separate yourself in a good way. And now's the time for some of these players who won't play in time to do that.
Southland comes into the season with a good stable of wide receivers. All of these guys saw action last year. Alan Stick, Thomas Fowler, Jackson Webb, and Ashton Ray. So Southland pretty loaded on the outside at the receiver spots. Cade Futch will return as a running back, as will Turner Simmons and Jamarcus Walker. But, Scott, you and I know this from following high school football pretty closely. The offensive line makes a big difference. And Southland has two big offensive linemen returning. That's Jackson Avant and Jack Say. And they'll depend heavily on those two big guys up front.
Right. And also we hope and pray for no injuries, because, the problem with a lot of teams in our area, especially the three that we cover, they don't have a lot of depth, and they've got usually the starters out there. But once you peel that onion back, that first layer, you've got a lot of inexperienced younger players. And so we hope that the offensive linemen, all the players, really stay healthy, but definitely with your offensive line, because that's your anchor right there. That's what sets the tone. Whether they may not get all the newspaper clippings, and they may not get all the PA announcing. Usually, if a player gets cited, an offensive lineman gets cited in that, it's an area they don't want to be cited for, where they've messed up. But these are the guys that really set the tone that most fans overlook.
On the defensive line, Davis Daniel, pretty much the only guy coming back that has got any experience, but Davis, a big presence up front. And then at linebacker and defensive back, Ethan Beck as well as Ashton Ray, both had great years for the Raiders. And Scott, like Sly County, Southland, a small school, you're going to see a lot of these athletes go both ways on both sides of the football. Right.
They've got to be well conditioned, and that's what June and July for, is conditioning. Then you sit there and in August, and you kind of put your game plan together, and also hopefully all these guys are in pretty good shape to go both ways already.
Southland's numbers may be down a little bit, but the optimism seems to be very high. Got a chance to talk to Chance Jones, and Scott, he feels like that move from AAA down to AA is really going to be a good one for Southland. For years now, they've been one of the smaller schools in the AAA class. Now they'll be one of the larger schools in that AA class. It really does provide competitive balance.
It does help out, but still, you're still playing Georgia football. Even though at this level, whether it's 2A or 3A in the GIAA, either one, one or two players can tip the scales on any team, and definitely at those levels. So you're still. It's going to be, like I said, a more competitive balance, but there's still going to be athletes on the field and on the other side of the field that you're going to have to compensate for.
Our show is brought to you today by Marty McDonald State Farm Insurance. They're located at 925 Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard. You can reach Marty at 928-3686. Contact Marty or Mary Lynn, any of their staff. Let them discuss your insurance needs with you. They are famous for performing the discount double check to ensure you're receiving all of the savings that are available to you. Thanks again to Marty McDonald State Farm Insurance for sponsoring this segment of the Integrity Sports Podcast. And like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. All right, Scott, so we've talked Southland Raider football a little bit. Let's move on to Sumter County. Sumter County put together a pretty good year last year, 5-5 on the year. They, too, will be moving into a new region. They'll be in Region 1 Class AA. Will Rogers will enter his second year. You and I had nothing but praise for Will Rogers last year. Really thought he turned a program around that had fallen on hard times. For those that don't follow Sumter County very closely, they had only won one game in the previous 3 seasons. So they were 1-9 or 1-8 in the seasons before that. Will Rogers came in and hit the ground running, really did a good job, and they'll open up on August 16th with a trip across the Flint River Bridge to Cordele to take on the Crisp County Cougars.
It's something that's kind of like a Daytona 500. They're playing their rival coming right out of the gate, and it's probably smart to do that because their new region it's full of Columbus schools, so they're going to keep the roads hot between here and Columbus this season. But I just hope that, and I feel like they will build on last season's momentum. That Coach Rogers got started. He had some had to change a whole bunch of attitudes, way of thinking, and to change the culture. And I think this will probably, he's returning a lot of good players, but also I bet you he's getting some kids that's coming out there to play football, because it's always easier to get kids to come out and play when you're starting to win and there's some momentum building and there's some excitement in the air, because it's tough when it's 1-9 and you're trying to get kids to come up and give up their summers and their afternoons after school to practice football.
Listen to this, Scott. In the summer, Sumter County has had 80-plus football players going through workouts in the summer. So Will Rogers has got them feeling good, got a lot of kids out, and that's going to bode well for a team now in Class AA. He did a great job of scheduling, I think. When you think about changing the culture like you talked about, you got to build in some wins. Mm-hmm. And part of that is you want to play teams that have the name recognition, because in the past they've had good programs, but have kind of fallen on hard times as of late. Their two non-region games after that Crisp County game up front are going to be Griffin High, who was 1-8 last year, but we know Griffin in years past has had really good programs. Mm-hmm. And then they're also going to play Pike County, who was 2-8 last year. So if they can get a big win up front against Crisp, which is by no means a given, that's going to be a tough game. But get a win on opening day, August 16th. You should pick up a win your next two and get a 3-0 start going into region play.
Oh, yeah. And, like you said, Griffin, they've got such a storied past. I don't know if Spalding is starting to poach some of their players or exactly what's going on there. But yeah, that's a program probably not unlike Sumter County was this time last year. They're looking to turn the corner and change things. Now, Pike County is not necessarily as well known in football as they are in baseball.
Right.
So they're probably fighting an uphill battle, changing that baseball school to a football school. But it's got to happen sometime, and it's don't be surprised if they don't try to turn the corner this year, just like Sumter County did last year.
And as you mentioned, Scott, in region play, every team in the region other than Sumter County is one of the Columbus schools. So Sumter County this year will host Kendrick, Spencer, Hardaway, and Columbus High. They'll go on the road 3 other times to Columbus, where they'll face Shaw, Jordan, and Carver of Columbus. So going to be a lot of familiarity between Americus and Columbus.
I can just tell you, if I was a Sumter County fan, I'd at least make sure one of those Friday nights I leave early so I can go to Country's Barbecue on Macon Road on Friday night, where they have live bluegrass music. So that may be kind of get a little bit of barbecue and bluegrass and football all in one night. And as far as I'm concerned, that's the trifecta for somebody. I was going to
say you get you some bluegrass music, but you also get some of the best barbecue on the planet there. Mm-hmm. So, Scott, Ishmael Jones will most likely be the quarterback for the Panthers this year. He's a junior. This junior class for Sumter County just really special. Probably the guy that's got name recognition and well-deserved. Had a little bit of an injury bug last year, but he's back fully healthy now. That'll be A.J. Kearse, who will be their standout running back. Probably also gets a lot of action at the linebacker spot.
Definitely, he did. He missed. He was slow coming out of the gates last year because of his injury. I mean, we just each week we were like, what's his status? What's his status? What's his status? So we got to see a healthy season of his. And I'm telling you, it's not only us local fans that want to see a healthy season out of him. It's probably some college recruiters want to see a healthy season out of him.
You got that right. Another guy that will be counted on, we kind of categorize him as an athlete more than a position player, but that's going to be Cordarian Leverett. He'll play some at wide receiver. He'll play some at the scat back or kind of H-back position. They'll also throw him back in the defensive backfield as well, but he's a good athlete. crazy good linebacker coming back in Kendall Thomas. In talking with Darren Alford recently about them facing Sumter County in the 7-on-7s, he said, boy, that guy linebacker, that Thomas kid is really something special. So look for good things from Kendall Thomas. Another big D1 type prospect will be on the offensive line. That'll be Bryce Volley. Of course, big Joshua Coleman comes back on the defensive front. And then the surprise is a wide receiver by the name of Omari Woodard. Omari grew up in Americus, came through our rec program here, played at the middle school, but then transferred to Baldwin County High School over in Milledgeville. He's a 6'5", big, long, lanky receiver. He has now moved back to Americus and will be on the field for the Panthers. So, Scott, it looks like these guys are loaded with talent.
Baldwin County hated losing that player. That's just so we talk about 2 or 3 players can tip the scales. I guarantee you at 6'5", if he's got any athletic ability at all at that size in AA, he's going to be a standout. Yeah,
if you ever eat at Gladys's Kitchen, Omari Woodard is the grandson of Tracy that runs Gladys's Kitchen. So ought to be interesting to see him on the field again.
Scott, I ate there more than I should. I ate there more.
Yeah, me too. Hey, Scott, as we close out with Sumter County, I just want to kind of give a closing remark and see if you agree with that. But I do feel like Sumter County is on an upward trajectory. Will Rogers has got this program moving in the right direction. And when you look at this new region that they're in, there are a couple of teams in that region that are usually pretty solid. But I think Sumter County's got a real shot at winning the region. And if they don't win the region, they should be one of the top 2, I would guess. No doubt it looks like Will Rogers should make the playoffs for the first time in many years, and that's good news for the Panthers.
Most definitely. Every fan takes the schedule and prints it out and writes the W's and the L's going down through it. And I'm sure a lot of those schools in Columbus have written thinking they're going to get a W with Sumter County just on the pass. But like you and I both know, I mean, there's momentum there. And if it carries into this season and his players stay healthy, they some of those Columbus fans may be, counting their chickens before they hatch, so to speak.
Our show today is also brought to you by the Fish House Seafood Restaurant, located at 224 North Jackson Street in Americus. They are a staple for seafood lovers in Southwest Georgia. Whether it's fresh fish or shrimp in their seafood center or a delicious hot meal, catfish, grouper, or oysters in the Fish House restaurant next door. Owner Mark Tyler and his staff, they look forward to serving you. Go by and see them or give them a call at 924-5177 and let the Fish House provide you a delicious meal tonight. So, Scott, we've hit Southland Academy. We've talked a little about Sumter County's Panthers. Now we move to the Sly County Wildcats. Last year in 23, high hopes going into the year for a state championship. They fell 2 games short of that, finished 13-1. Losing in the semifinals to the eventual state champion Bowden. Sly will again be in Region 6. That's in Class A Division 2. Darren Alford returned. I know when we ended the season, there was some speculation as whether Darren would retire or not, but he did choose to come back. One of the interesting things this year, speaking of retirement, we'll have a new defensive coordinator on the sideline. Tim Peavy, the former defensive coordinator, retired, and Coach Alford named one of his staff, Greg Smith, to come in. And, Scott, I know you as a dad had a lot of experience with Greg Smith. What do you think about that move?
I'm super excited. I've always liked Greg. Let me tell you, the kids absolutely love him. I'm speaking specifically one that I know of loved him. Let me tell you, on Sunday night, I know Coach Smith would be sending out film for the kids to watch, and things like that. And he would do little things that in the film that, would make sure the kids were watching it. He would, first person that comes back and responds about something that he put in the film for them to respond to would get some sort of treat or some extra. So he really teaches these kids discipline in a way that they can identify with. I mean, I'm super excited. You might want to get Crazy Tim's golf carts. He may be one of your advertisers one day, because I think Coach Peavy's now selling some golf carts up there in Ellaville. So you may want to check and see if he'll want to advertise with you. But yeah, I couldn't. I mean, Coach Alford, he knows his staff. He's coached with Coach Smith for many years, and he knows exactly who he thinks is going to do the best job in that position. And I would never, ever argue with that pick, because I know the kids love him, and that's so important.
We also have a couple of new assistant coaches coming in. We'll talk about them shortly. Scott, the opening game for the Wildcats will also be on August 16th. So all three of our area teams opening on the 16th. Schley County will travel down to Donaldsonville and take on Seminole County. Not very familiar with them. I don't know if you know anything about them or not.
I thought there was a possibility we would have faced them in the playoffs. I did just a little checking on them last year. They're another one of those storied programs from the past who's suffered the past few years, but obviously they did well enough to make it, I think, at least to the second round. I'm not 100% certain, but I think they did at least make it to the second round last year. And if they did that with a young team, then that worries me a little. If they did it with a team like we had last year and we graduated so many, then it may not worry me nearly as much.
We also will have home games against Hawkinsville, Irwin County, Crawford County, Taylor County, and Marion County. Our road games will be down in Blakely at Early County. We'll go over to Chatco, to Macon County, and to Central of Talbotton. I'm looking forward to that Irwin County game as Casey Soliday brings his team in, and Irwin County always one of the top teams in Class A.
And they travel well. Those fans travel well, and it's always a good, I think just like Schley County travels well when they go to Ocilla. They seems like Ellaville and Ocilla swap good gates on that night. So I think that would be something that I know that Coach Tice is looking forward to also.
As far as players that you can look for Schley County, going to be breaking in a new quarterback this year as Blake Weldon gets his shot. We saw a lot of Blake Weldon last year because Schley was ahead so much after the first or second quarter that Blake got a good bit of playing time. And Scott, I thought he performed really well every time he was in.
Most definitely. And he's that experience last year that so many of these players that you're about to talk about, they got a lot of experience last year, and it's got to be something that Coach Alford is really thankful for and has taken the opportunity to build upon.
And then, of course, the All-American, the kid everybody in America knows about, Zayden Walker, who is now committed to the University of Georgia. I think we'll see him both at running back and at the linebacker spot. Rivals has him listed as the top outside linebacker in the country in the class of 2025. So, Scott, no secret about Zayden. You can't stop him. You just got to hope to contain him.
Exactly. You're going to, whatever side he lines up on. I'll take bets in the press box that they ain't going to run to that side. So, you can just rest assured they're going to be running away from him. The opponents will be running away from him all night long.
And then at linebacker, a guy that really came on strong last year, Brody Smith, I think will lead the linebacker core. Another big guy up front on the defensive side of the ball will be Dedrick Thornton. Dedrick's a big fella. But when I spoke with Coach Alford yesterday, he really bragged on what he thinks is the strength of this team, and that's going to be his offensive line. Gabe Powell comes back at the center position. Hank Arrington and Jake Owens will lock down the guard spots. And then big Judah Rayburn and big Gus Harris line up at left and right tackle. And Scott, not deep, but all of those guys are quality.
Oh, yeah. Oh, gosh. They got so many of those guys got so much playing time last year that they've all gotten stronger, older, more experienced. And that's got to, Coach Alford, that's kind of his thing, his offensive line. So, he's chomping at the bit to see what they can do on Friday night. There's one person, too, that I think is going to surprise you at Schley County this year. is going to be Jordan Hudson. Jordan, I think he's coming in. He's going to a lot of football camps this summer. If he sits there and has a good season, look for him to be a player that ends up at the next level. He passes the eye test. He's a tall, athletic, good-looking kid. Put some meat on them bones, and you're looking at your stereotypical tight end. But I think they're going to have him more at the receiver spot, and so hopefully he'll be a big target for Blake and surprise a lot of people this year.
I think another guy that you can look to do multiple things will be Kendall Sims. Sims will be out at the wide receiver spot some. We'll put him in the backfield and let him run the ball. Not going to surprise me if you see him at quarterback a few times.
Yeah, that could wreak havoc on a defense. And you got Connor Ryan also. Connor got a lot of playing time last year, and I think he'll step up. He'll be one of those players that you'll see going both ways on the skill positions also.
Scott, two other offensive or rather assistant coaches. I don't think either of them are on the offensive side. I know Nathan Hammock comes over from Southland Academy, where he's been the last few years. Nathan's going to be assigned to the defensive backs. And then Nick Bentley, who's been on our middle school staff, will step up on the varsity and coach the defensive line. Both of those guys, very quality men and good coaches.
I know. Definitely. I think I've heard nothing but good things about both of them. Coach William Rooks headed to Southland, but I remember whenever he had Coach Bentley at the middle school level, he always had great things to say about him. And I know Coach Hammock, kind of coming home, so to speak, is going to enjoy with the group of defensive backs that he has that are coming back. They're as good as anything you're going to have in the state.
So in closing, Scott, let me just say that I think Sly County's done a great job of putting together some non-region games that will challenge them and prepare them when they get into Region 6 Class A D2 play. Mm-hmm. No question that the Wildcats will be the favorite to win the division. Going to have some tight games probably against a Chatco if they recruit well, because we all know that's kind of what they do. I do think Marion County is going to be much improved. We'll have to see kind of what Taylor County is. That you never really know year to year. But Scott, I think definitely we should be the favorite to win the region.
Definitely. I don't think we're going to have quite the cakewalk we had in a lot of games last year, because the teams we're playing were younger. They've got more experience, but we've got a lot of kids that got a lot of experience too that have stepped up and are going to fill some of those holes that we lost in graduation last year.
So over the next few weeks, we plan to have on Chance Jones once again. We'll probably get Chance on for about 10 minutes or so, and then we'll do an entire show with Will Rogers from Sumter County High School, as well as Darren Alford from Sly County High School. And Scott, maybe we can do that leading up to that August the 15th. Let me remind you once again, as a listener, as a viewer, we want you to come out on Thursday nights to the Roman Oven Pizzeria, visit with Scott and myself. And if you're one of the student athletes in the area that plays for one of these three teams and you'd like to be a guest on the show, feel free to come. We'd love to have you on. But, Scott, I think we started something last year that's really going to grow this year, and people are going to enjoy it.
I hope so. I mean, like I tell people, if they don't enjoy it, it's worth what they're paying for, right?
That's right. Hey, again, let me remind you, please go to our YouTube page. Even if you're not a part of YouTube, just Google it. Go on their channel, put Integrity Sports Podcast. Go to our homepage and hit that red subscribe button. We can do so much more if we reach the 1,000 subscriber mark. And whatever platform you're watching this on today, hit like and share it with your friends. Scott, thanks for joining me. I look forward to another great season. For my friend, Scott Westbrook, I'm Tim Estes. Thanks for watching. So long, everybody.